All right, 8-2, reflections. All right, have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror with words written on your shirt? And how do the words look? They look backwards, right? They're a reflection, a mirror image. So that's what we're going to do with our shapes today. So a reflection is simply a mirror image of the original figure. Remember, the original figure is called the pre-image. Then we have our line or reflection. And this is the transformation of figure, goes across a line. Okay? And we're actually going to highlight our lines of reflection today. Okay? So example 1. Okay, it says reflect figure on a coordinate plane. The graph of triangle PQR has coordinates of, here are the coordinates for P, Q, and R. Wants us to graph PQR and its image after reflection across the y-axis. All right, I always look for what it's wanting me to do, and it's wanting me to reflect across the y-axis. All right, then write the coordinates of the reflection. So if I'm going to reflect across the y-axis, all right, I'm going to find the y-axis and I'm going to highlight it. Okay. So that way I always have a visual of what line I am reflecting over. All right, so we have to plot our original points, and we're going to remember that all points are given in an XY fashion. Okay, X is always first, and it tells us if we're going to the left or right. If we go to the right, it is because it's positive, and left, negative. Y is always second. Okay, so after we go left or right, then we pause and go up or down based on the sign. All right, so up is positive, down is negative. All right. So let's graph triangle PQR. All right. So P is at 1, 5. All right. It's positive. We're going to go to the right. We always start at our origin. Okay. Always start at our origin. It is a positive 1, so I'm going to go to the right 1. I'm going to pause. My Y is 5. I'm going to go up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is where I place my dot for my P. Q is at 3, 7. All right, start my origin. Going to go to the right 3. 1, 2, 3, pause. I'm going to go up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to label it Q. Lastly, I have R, 4, negative 1. Okay, start at my origin always. I'm going to go to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, pause. And now I'm going to go down 1. And this is R. All right. Now I have my 3 dots, and I'm going to connect my 3 dots. Here, I'll do it with a ruler, just so you can see the shape well. Okay. In class, if you want to borrow a ruler, feel free. You don't have to, though. All right, we're going to connect the dots and get our triangle. All right, if you'll notice, the P points towards the left. All right, let's watch our P as it reflects. All right, when we reflect, we're going to use these background graph lines. And when we are reflecting over the y-axis, we're going to reflect to the left, okay, over the y-axis. All right, over the y-axis on the graph line that is started on. So Q is 1, 2, 3 to the right. And when we reflect over the y-axis, we're going to stay on the graph line that Q is on. See the background graph line, okay? Go back to that line of reflection, and since Q is 3 to the right, we're going to reflect it 3 to the left. 1, 2, 3. Q reflected right here. That's its final resting place, so we give it a tombstone. P. All right, from the line of reflection, P is 1 to the right. Go back to the line of reflection, we're going to go 1 to the left on the same graph line. That's P's final resting place. Finally, R. All right, on line of reflection, and we are 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right. Go back to the line of reflection, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left, and on the same background graph line, okay? All right. Now let's connect these dots. And if you'll notice, when you connect your dots and form your triangle, that P that was pointing to the left, when you reflect it, it does the opposite. It points to the right. So we graphed our original triangle, we reflected it after reflection over the y, and now we're going to write our coordinates. Okay, where did we end up? So let's do P's final resting place first. Where did we bury P? Well, when we count, we always start at the origin. Okay, we're going left, so it's a negative, and we go left 1, negative 1. We pause, and then we go up, so it's positive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, positive 5. All right, next up is Q. Q. See where we buried Q. Always start at the origin when we're counting off our coordinates. And let's see, we are going to go to the left, so it's negative. 1, 2, 3. Okay, negative 3. Where I paused, and I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that is a positive 7. All right. Lastly, we've got our R. Where did we bury R? Okay. Start our origin. We're going left, so it's going to be negative 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 4. And then we go down, so this is also negative, negative 1. All right. Sometimes, all right, you reflect over a line that is not an access line. So see, we reflected over the y-axis. If we have a graph set up a certain way, we can reflect over the x-axis. So what's pointed up would be pointed down. And sometimes we reflect over lines that aren't access lines. All right. So it says the graph of triangle ABC has the coordinates. These are your coordinates for A, B, and C. Wants us to graph triangle ABC and its image after reflection across the line y equals minus 2. Then write the coordinates of the image. Okay, so we're going to reflect y equals minus 2. Okay, here's my y-axis. Okay, 0, y minus 2, we need a line going across this point right here. We've got to go across this line. Across this line. So that line there is y equals minus 2, because all the y's are minus 2 along this line. Y equals minus 2. So let's graph our original triangle. So let's see, we have A, we have B, and C. All right, A. A is negative 3, 3. All right. So start at the 0, and then we're going to go left 3, 1, 2, 3, pause, and then down 3, 1, 2, 3. This is A. We're going to do B. Okay. Always start at 0. And we're running coordinates. All right, negative 1, so we go left 1, pause, and then down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, it's B starting point. C starting point is 1, negative 4. Okay, start the origin. It's positive, so we're going to go right 1, pause, and then negative 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, C. I'm going to connect my dots. Okay, I'm going to connect my dots for my triangle. All right, now we have triangle ABC. Now we're going to reflect it over this line of y equals -2. All right. So we're going to reflect over this line. So we're going to stay on these background graph lines that go across that highlighted line. All right. So our line of reflection, A is 1 below. Go back to the line of reflection, reflect it 1 above. All right, B. Here's your line of reflection. See how far down B is. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so go back to our line of reflection. We're going to go 1, 2, 3 above. Finally, C. Line of reflection, go 1, 2 down. Line of reflection, 1, 2 up. All right, we are going to draw this triangle. So if you'll notice, your B that started pointing down when you reflect, it's now pointing up in the opposite direction. Okay? Now, it wants us to write a coordinate of this image. Where did we bury the body, basically? All right, so where did we bury A? So when we count coordinates, we always start at the origin, which is 0, 0. We're going to go to the left, so it's going to be -1, 2, 3. -3. All right. Then we pause, and we went down 1. So it's a -1. Where did we bury B? Okay. Always find the origin. We're going to go to the left 1, so that's -1. We pause, and we go up 1, so that's a +1. C, where is C's final resting place? Okay, always start at the origin, and we go right 1, so that's a +1. But we do not go up nor down. We stay right here on our axis line, so that is 0. All right, so let's now flip our paper over. And let's see how we can reflect across axis lines without actually having a graph, okay? So, reflecting using coordinates. So, we can use some little math, okay? So, if we want to reflect across the y-axis, we're going to reflect across the x-axis, all right? This is your coordinate notation. You're going to take, remember, this just symbolizes your starting points. And the changes that are going to happen is if you're reflecting across the x-axis, the sign in front of the y changes, all right? So let's make some notes about that. So, remember, this negative, when we are talking about coordinate notation, just means change the sign, all right? Change the sign. When we are moving it, when we are reflecting it, however we are transforming it. But when we have coordinate notations like this, the negative just means change the sign. And so if your original coordinate point is a positive, then it becomes a negative. If it starts a negative, then you change it into a positive, okay? So here's how we do this. This is what it symbolizes, okay? That's just your starting point, okay? Remember that just symbolizes a starting point. Okay? The arrow means that starting point is going to go through some sort of change. And when we reflect across the x-axis, what is that change? Simply the sign of the y. Change sign of y. Okay? Reflect across the x-axis, change the sign of the y. Now, let's look at reflecting across the y-axis. All right, our coordinate notation when we reflect across the y-axis. When we reflect across the y-axis, remember, this just represents our starting point. Okay, that's our starting point. This arrow means change. And what do we change when we reflect across the y-axis? We change the sign in front of the x. All right, let's give it a try. All right. So when I have a whole lot of words like this on camera, I'll read them, but I suggest you skim them to try to get a quick glimpse of what it's asking and then highlight what it's asking or underline it. And I see the word reflected across the y-axis. All right, let me go back and read it. So we have a quadrilateral. Quad means four. We have four-sided shape. A, B, C, D has coordinates. Here are your coordinates for A, B, C, and D. The quadrilateral is reflected across the y-axis. All right, y-axis. Write the coordinate notation. Okay, the coordinate notation is simply writing your rule. These are coordinate notations. Okay, these are your rules. That's all this means is you're going to write your rule for the reflection across the y-axis. All right. So we want the coordinate notation for reflecting across the y-axis. We want our rule. Then we're going to write the coordinates for where we buried the body. All right. So the coordinate notation for reflecting across the y-axis. All right, reflecting across the y-axis. The coordinate notation. You start out with your starting point. Whatever your starting point is, it's going to make a change. And what's going to change when we reflect across the y-axis? We're going to change the sign in front of your x. All right, so now we have our coordinate notation. That's what this is. Now we're going to write the coordinates for A, B, C, and D, where we buried the bodies. All right, let's see where we buried them. All right, so we have A. So A starts out -2, 4. We are going to make a change. We're going to bury it. We're going to change the sign in front of our x. We're going to change the sign in front of the x. So that -2 becomes a +2. All right. B. All right. So we are going to change the sign of this x here, okay? Because all we need to do is write the coordinates. So we're going to write just the coordinates of where we buried B. All right. So y-axis. Change the sign of the x. The positive becomes a -1. All right. C. C. All right. We're reflecting across the y-axis. What changes? The sign in front of the x. So C is burial place. We go from a -1 to a +1. And then finally, we have our D. D. Okay, when we reflect across the y-axis, we change the sign of our x. All right, so D's final resting place, we change the sign in front of the x. That's 5, 1. All right, there are all those final resting places. Now it wants us to describe the reflection, okay? So the coordinates of triangle PQR and its image are shown. Describe the transformation using words. All right. The state is going to love these, all right? So just fair warning, the state wants you to know how to do these. So in order to do these, we are going to pick a 1. So we could pick Q, P, R, doesn't matter. We are going to pick P. We're going to pick P. Okay. Now, P started out, okay, so we know we have some sort of transformation. So we are going to write the coordinate notation first, all right? So we know that we started out x, y. We had some sort of change, okay? some sort of change. And then how did it change? All right. Well, it looks like your x's stayed the same because -3 is still -3, so x stays the same. But what changed? Well, your y started out -2 and ended up +2. So your y had a change of sign. Okay? So what is this a coordinate notation to? So we look up at our notes. We change the y. Ooh, change the y. I reflected across the x-axis. So it's a reflection across x-axis. Oh, axis. There we go. Let's spell that correctly. All right. So your assignment has 6 problems. 2 of them are like example 1 on the front, top. 2 of them are like example 2 on the front, on the bottom. There is 1 that's like example 3, and there's 1 like example 4 here. All right. Good luck.